Hi folks, Florida Man here. We are one of the biggest, and probably the best, of the diplomacy YouTube channels. I'm also currently publishing a lit RPG fantasy novel on Royal Road, linked in the description below, called Ruthless, Path of Conquest. Today, I'm going over a game I played in the Olympus Tournament. The game was named Ares. Quick shout out thanking Bob's a Builder here, because Bob's a Builder decided to name these games after Greek gods, and it was in direct response to the fact that I told him last time, or said in one of my recordings last time, that the names of the games were too boring. So, good for you, man. Thank you for listening to legitimate feedback, and these names are great. Naming this game Ares gives people an extra motivation to win, because if you were a winner in this game, you would get the title on Discord, Ares. So you'd be the god of war on the Discord, which is pretty neat. I played as Germany in this game, so let's get to it, and how and why this became one of the most frustrating games I've played in months. So as Germany, I initially didn't really like my communications with England, and I decided that I preferred to work with France. I moved to Denmark and Kiel, did a coordinated bounce with France in Burgundy for our mutual security, and at the same time England opened to Norwegian, North, and Yorkshire. Russia moved to Bothnia. I had agreed not to bounce him in Sweden because I wanted him to be able to go against England. He was non-committal about that, but I figured a friendly Russia is better than an unfriendly Russia. Looking to the south, we see that Italy made a typical opening. Austria had what might have been a coordinated bounce with Russia in Galicia. Turkey and Russia, interestingly, did not bounce in Black Sea. Neither of them moved there. Indication of a strong, tight juggernaut that we perhaps should have paid more attention to. Going to the fall, we see that Russia gets into Galicia and Romania with armies, and Turkey still not doing anything anti-Russian, still just moving against Austria, bounces Austria out of Greece, moves Constantinople into Aegean Sea, and Ankara to Khan. A very strong anti-Austrian, anti-Italian posture here. Italy setting up for a possible Lepanto with a convoy to Tunis. Austria just kind of getting ready to get wrecked, being slowly surrounded by Russia. In the west, better news from my point of view. We see that England gets bounced. He tries to convoy to Belgium, but France bounces him out, while I hold tight in Denmark, letting Russia into Sweden, and I occupy Holland. So things are going well for me because they're doing exactly what I want them to do. What I expect is what's happening. And that's what I like, when I can predict and when good things are happening. Unfortunately, after the spring, France isn't talking to me. And he still moved in a friendly way, but I don't like the fact that he doesn't answer messages in fall and in the build phase. It makes me very annoyed and uncomfortable, because this is the very beginning of the game. I need to actually know what's going on. I need to know what he's doing a little bit. I need to know if he's going to build a fleet or armies. I don't want him to build armies, obviously, but having some measure of anxiety about this, I start talking to England again about working together. And England and I agree to work together, and he's supposed to build a fleet in Liverpool, and I'm going to build armies. So I build armies, and what does England do? He builds Fleet London. And that is not nearly as useful, for anyone who doesn't know this, that's not nearly as useful of an anti-French build as Fleet Liverpool. And so I'm immediately ticked off. And at the same time, France starts talking to me again. So France, having built Fleet Brest and Army Paris, is clearly looking like a much better partner here. Russia builds Army St. Pete and Army Warsaw after some consultation with me, and he admits some consultation with England. He says England is ticked off, although he did warn him he was going to build that army in St. Pete, and France is interested, or Russia is interested in working with me after that unpleasant conversation with England. So all good. I'm happy about this. Things can work out well here. Austria builds Army Vienna, Italy builds Fleet Naples. They both know they're facing a juggernaut. They have to work together. I'm optimistic they will work together effectively to stop or slow down the Russian and Turkish advance. Turkey builds Fleet Smyrna. Looking to spring 1902, we see Russia does not do anything against England. He is being cagey here. He does not want the Western Triangle to resolve. I'm a little bit annoyed with him. And don't bother responding to his message this season. England tries moving north to Norwegian and London to north, but I bounce the latter move. England also moves Yorkshire to Wales, solid defensive choice, but France and I are slowly, hopefully, steadily going to move against him. France occupies the English Channel and Mid-Atlantic Ocean, because of course he did, because England did nothing to stop that for some reason. And I am given support into Belgium because I tell France I'm going to use that to build a fleet. We can see that I'm moving units to the border with France, and France is moving units to the border with me, but at this point, neither of us intends any conflict, I believe. Looking to the south, we see Italy tries a convoy into Greece successfully, while Turkey supports himself into East Med. Austria is forced out of Serbia by the Juggernaut, and Italy moves into Tyrolia for one reason or another. So things are looking bad for the AI, which is kind of typical, honestly. It's really hard for them to stand up to the Juggernaut unless they are a really strong alliance from really early on. Looking to the fall, we see that Russia does not advance any further, but neither do Russia and Turkey lose ground. And Turkey actually gets into Greece this time because they take a bold risk in trying to support their attack into Greece, while Austria and Italy are trying both to hold Greece and to retake Serbia. Austria seemed to get the tactics a bit wrong here. Suffice to say, Austria and Italy seem to get the tactics a bit wrong here. But it's also just very difficult because, comparatively speaking, Austria is able to put, 4 units on the border with Russia and Turkey. Russia's able to match that, more or less. And Turkey has another 4 units, while Italy only has 3 in the fight. That unit in Tyrolia being completely useless right now. So they are effectively outnumbered. Looking to the west, we see that England is maneuvering, trying to keep hold of what he has. Russia finally follows through on what he said he would do and takes Norway from England. So England's goose is probably cooked. My border with France is happily peaceful. I do fail to get into the North Sea, which is unfortunate and could have been successful if France had just supported me in, but I'm not. And at this point, I'm just getting a bit anxious because I think the Juggernaut is going to be more successful in wiping out Austria and Italy fairly quickly, especially Austria, than I will be with wiping out the English. In the build phase, you see that I do get a fleet, as promised, to France. England destroys the completely misplaced unit, frankly, that he put in Barents Sea before when he thought he could safely attack Russia for some reason. England was just not very good in this game. He made some bold swings, and they were all misses. Austria destroys Fleet Albania, which makes a lot of sense. Italy has plenty of fleets, and Austria needs those armies really badly. Turkey builds 2 new fleets, Khan and Smyrna. You can really tell how closely tied in Russia and Turkey are here. They are a very tight alliance. And in the spring of 1903, they continue their march forward, with Turkey getting into Albania and Russia attempting to take Budapest unsuccessfully. But you can tell that that's going to succeed in the fall inevitably, which is perhaps why they don't bother supporting it as much this season. They're waiting for the fall when it really counts. Turkey also getting into Aegean Sea and trying to bounce in Ionian, but Italy just held in Ionian, so it didn't matter. Probably a missed opportunity by Italy, honestly, to advance into Adriatic Sea and create a more defensible position. I think the Italian-Austrian strategy here is just very flawed. And at this point, Austria, for some unfathomable reason, moves into Bohemia. This is one of the worst decisions Austria makes in this game. It's because Russia is pushing him to do it. I know this from both Austria and I think Russia might have admitted it. But there's no excuse. It's completely wrong and illogical, and dramatically weakens his defensive position in Austria itself. It's also just a very unfortunate moment for me. I do not need distractions right now, or possible temptations for France to attack me. France and I are still not succeeding at taking any English ground, and I only take North Sea this season because Russia supports me in. It's a really unhealthy situation, very unhelpful, and I am starting to feel like this is going to be a cluster. Fall 1903, you see that Austria tries moving Bohemia to Galicia, taps that support that was coming from Galicia, but it doesn't really matter because Austria also moved out of Budapest into Serbia for some reason and moved Trieste to Albania. Austria is not making good tactical decisions. Have I mentioned that? So Austria actually loses both Budapest and Trieste as a result of these decisions, because Turkey vacated Serbia for Trieste, not knowing he would get in. Italy didn't even know that Austria was going to do this, so Italy supported Trieste to hold, which isn't what Trieste did, instead of Italy moving to Trieste and possibly bouncing Turkey. And Russia, of course, supported himself into Budapest. So Austria is down to 1 dot, all because of his bad decisions. And at the same time, I managed to happily sneak into Edinburgh, but that's the first centre we've even taken off of England. We're in real bad shape. This is not a great place to be. And France and I are still keeping armies on our shared border, which probably unnecessary. I wish I didn't have these armies, but I do, and don't really want to give them up, especially now that Russia is going to become more and more of a formidable power. Italy, at the same time that Austria is losing all this ground, starts trying to shift west. I don't know what spooked him or why he decided to do that, but now he's threatening the south of France instead of defending the ground that he actually has. A very bad situation. In the build phase, England destroys his fleet in London. I build a fleet in Kiel. I'm thinking about taking out England. I'm thinking about taking out Russia. Russia builds Army Warsaw, which is not terribly surprising, and Fleet St. Pete South Coast, indicating he is ready to pivot to a fight with me, which also honestly not very surprising, but is not a great moment for me. Not a great situation, because Russia is absolutely ready for this fight, has Austria kind of foolishly acting as his janissary, and I'm in this situation where I have an uneasy alliance with a comrade who barely talks, and the primary opponent of that alliance, England, still is not quite dead yet. Going to spring 1904, we see I am trying to be clever, trying to anticipate what people are going to do, so I attempt to bounce Russia moving to Silesia. That fails, but at least I don't lose Munich, because France knows better than to try and support Austria in. France, though, does make some kind of boneheaded moves here, does not bother to defend his south against Italy, because maybe Italy said something reassuring to him, and I guess he was more worried about me than Italy, which is the part that seems boneheaded, because I am obviously about to be under attack. Worrying about me is silly. At the same time, I support myself from Eddy into Norwegian Sea, planning to go and make a strong stand against Russia with my fleets that, do outnumber his for now. So that's going on. Russia and Turkey continue to take out the remains of Austria, who is not defending himself at all at this point, as just bending his neck to be chopped. Going to fall 1904, you can see my situation is only getting worse and worse. I am pulling away defensively, trying to keep Russia from breaking through my defenses, and trying to make a solid defensible position in the German homeland. I also managed to take Norway, but at the same time Russia puts an army into Denmark, which is really bad. Really bad. It means my position is probably not permanently defensible. I made a mistake this season. I should have moved Belgium to Holland. I didn't fully trust France was not going to mess me over in some way, and that was a mistake at this moment, and I needed that unit to be there to make sure that it was impossible for Kiel to be taken. Looking to the south, we see that Italy continues to be a menace. to France. It's really a nuisance. I don't know why he's doing this. It's really, really dumb. But Turkey must be very persuasive. That's going to be the explanation for a few things in this game, actually. Turkey must be very persuasive. And at the same time that Italy is vacating spaces and going and attacking France, seemingly at Turkey's bidding, Turkey occupies Venice and the Tyrrhenian Sea. So, Italy, congratulations, you are a Turkish pawn. Turkey will be occupying more of your stuff, and it's too late for take-backsies. In the build phase, you see Turkey gets Army Khan, Fleet Smyrna, which is the first indicator that, maybe all is not perfect in paradise with Russia and Turkey. The Juggernaut seems like a strong alliance, but Turkey does feel like he needs that army, which means he's aware that Russia could turn on him at any time, and also he's aware of the possibility he could turn on Russia. So, we will see what comes of that. England managed to hold on to his unit in Liverpool, so he continues to not die for another day. And I have an obvious avenue of attack in that I could go for St. Pete at any moment now. So the build phase doesn't seem like we're in such a bad position, and then more things happen. So I do move Belgium out into Holland this season, get into that defensible position I keep mentioning. I move Norway to St. Pete, but Russia just walks into Norway. Russia gets into Berlin. It was indefensible no matter what I did because Russia had Denmark and Baltic Sea. So I do have a defensive wall at this point, though. I am not impenetrable. I need Burgundy to support me in Munich in the future because Russia's going to be able to attack from Silesia and Bohemia, and probably Tyrolia in the future. But more importantly, right now, he's already in Silesia and Bohemia, and he can cut my support from Kiel. So, Ruhr, once he can get into either Tyrolia, or he's already in Silesia, it's going to be very difficult for me to hold on to Munich, and I really need Burgundy's support. I also need for Turkey not to support Russia in. This is a bad situation. This is not a line. It's not defensible. And I also make the mistake of thinking that England is going to target me in Edinburgh, so I moved Norwegian Sea to Edinburgh thinking I would bounce there. Instead, I land in Edinburgh, which in spring 1905 is a completely useless place for my fleet to land. France still trying hard to kill off England, which failed last year and will not fail this year, but it does rob us of time. Valuable, needed time. France and Italy also still continuing to fight over Marseille, which Italy, for some reason, is pursuing ridiculously hard. Going to fall, we see that Germany... I continue to lose land. That's the long and short of it. I continue to lose land. Russia attacks me in Kiel, which I was trying to use to retake Berlin. Kind of an ill-thought-out idea, honestly. But I figured nothing ventured, nothing gained. If I am holding still in this position, I'm eventually going to lose ground. At the same time that I'm trying to find a way to last gasp defend the position and the stalemate line area against Russia, France occupies Belgium. France, who has been my ally sort of tensely for these last years, betrays me in this critical moment and foolishly takes Belgium when he frankly could have just pulled off that army. The Picardy army was not necessary at all to our defense. My units are much more important to our defense, and it's at this point that Russia approaches me about being a janissary. And I express openness to it, because why not? I destroy my fleet in St. Pete, and everything else I have, I could maybe just as well throw against France at this point. Russia is honestly looking for my thoughts on whether or not he could possibly solo, and, the possibility is open to him, and I tell him so. And so in spring 1906, you see Russia is sort of starting to position that way, and also encouraging me to move against France, which I'm doing. I retake Belgium with force. France loses that center that he should never have taken, and I also tap Burgundy just in case he was using that to support Belgium, which he was. At the same time, I'm losing Munich, but I get to retreat to Ruhr because I moved out of Ruhr to take Belgium. Turkey is going further and further west, because having taken over Italy, he is now going after the stuff that Italy took from France, because Italy foolishly decided to go west instead of defending himself earlier in the game, which would have led to Turkey definitely not being this far, I would say, into our territory. Going to fall, you can see that Russia does a self-bounce in Romania. You can tell he's worried about Turkey there, and Russia also occupies Vienna and moves into Galicia. This is Russia setting up for the stab. But at the same time, Turkey is moving into Serbia, moving into Bulgaria, moving a fleet into Khan. Turkey is also conscious that they are in danger from each other. Turkey is also kind of setting up for either a possible stab or defense against possible stabbing. And to the west, you can see I'm continuing to undermine France's ability to survive, because if anything, the result I want to achieve in this game is taking France out. Russia kind of sneaks into Edinburgh, doing something different than what we had discussed, and I'm not super happy with Russia after that, but I also don't care that much, because I expect Russia to do underhanded things when he is going for the solo, and it's what I would do. There's no reason to keep faith with someone you're planning to prevent from getting any points in this game anyway. You're trying to solo. There's no point in being nice. In the build phase, France destroys Fleet Clyde, and I destroy Army Holland, kind of still following Russia's direction here. Russia builds armies Moscow and Warsaw. Turkey builds army Smyrna. Things are coming to a head. Russia goes for the stab, goes for the attempt at the solo, goes for Armenia, Romania, Budapest, tries to get into Trieste. It's a really feeble stab attempt. It's very ineffectual. Russia also takes Holland from me, but again, this is just a really weak solo attempt. It needed to come sooner, or with Turkey being less prepared. And so we can see he's not going to get that much ground, as things are. He and Turkey are evenly matched this season. In the fall, you can see that Russia does manage to get sort of a tactical advantage by occupying the Black Sea, and he also takes Belgium, or tries to take Belgium from me. He fails at that. He tries to take London as well, and he fails at that too, and instead I actually push Russia out of North Sea by supporting France there. So Russia's gaining some ground. He took Liverpool from France because France didn't and couldn't defend it, but it's a very kind of weak and flawed solo effort by Russia. And Turkey is growing at the same rate as Russia, roughly. He's slightly behind, but only very slightly. Russia's up to 15, Turkey's up to 13. But it's really not decisive. And Turkey and France and I are all talking about how to stop the Russian solo at this point. Because I want to survive, I want to get points. I want to be in this game. So in the build phase, you see that I destroy Burgundy because I'm hoping to survive in Belgium and London. And France is willing to support me in Belgium. And Turkey is also talking about how he's going to defend against Russia. We're all kind of chit-chatting about that. Austria is just kind of a Russian pawn through and through, so he's kind of cut out of the conversation at a certain point. Italy is also not really participating. But Italy does go after a Russian center, Liverpool, in spring 1908, and everywhere else, Russia is also kind of in trouble. He doesn't get into Belgium, although because France and I made a tactical decision that would have allowed him in, he could have. He barely defends Kiel against an Austrian move there, and he's also failing to advance his front against Turkey. He also loses the Black Sea, which was the only tactical advantage he had against Turkey. And he loses Edinburgh to France, although we'll see if France manages to hold that in the fall. But France is very likely to hold it because Russia has no units nearby that can retake it. France has been doing pretty well in these last couple seasons, kind of bouncing back. Russia hit his peak, and you can tell he's starting to come down. And in fall, the most ridiculous, cowardly, weak move I've ever seen from a board leader in my 10 years or so playing the game of diplomacy. One of the most annoying, pitiful moves, really ticked me off that I've ever seen from someone who is the board leader. Russia was still the board leader at this point. He walks out of Vienna, Budapest, Romania. He walks out. He lets Turkey walk into his centers, and he throws the solo. Turkey finishes on 18. Could not have won without Russia throwing him those dots. And it is the most pitiful, annoying, anger-raising thing in this game. It feels like he disrespected everything everyone did trying to stop a solo from happening in this game. And the worst thing of all, from my perspective, is it wasn't even rational or self-interested at all. It was completely against his own interests. As the board leader, he could have certainly stopped Turkey from soloing. Things could have bounced back and forth. Russia still had plenty of opportunities that he could have soloed himself. It makes me so mad, I can barely contain it. Russia's explanation from Discord. He says, so here goes. First up, thanks to everybody who didn't play but is taking an interest in the game. I'll try and explain my game. From the start, Turkey and I hooked up to do the RT, whose rep has suffered recently, but is one of the few really strong coalitions on the board. Playable to a two-way draw. But also from the start, Turkey nagged me about his scoring needs, because he placed a premium on reaching the semifinals. While I consented to act as his helper, I didn't mean to do it, but resolved to give him a run for his money. During the game's early and middle phases, the rest of the board never got their act together. With such a board, whoever manages to cooperate consistently wins the day, and Turkey and I did that with ease. The moment came when Germany was beaten following a French stab. I had established my own deals with Austria, keep a unit for the rest of the game, Germany, die only after surpassing France's center count, and France, I would take neither Paris nor Brest, and I intended to honor all of those deals. Once Germany was out of his home territory and I was in Edinburgh, I thought it was obvious to everybody that the board was Turkey's and mine, so I tried to ratchet it up by that one turn, asking those other partners to support my solo run. Given that all of them were going to score 0 out of the game, I hoped they would see it that way too and realize the only remaining choice was between Turkey and me. In the conversations that followed, that was my pitch, while Turkey seems to have convinced all of them that they might get into a draw after all. That pitch won the day, and my solo run failed. The decision to give Turkey the big win was after I had considered what everybody's motives had been up until that point. And Turkey had proven himself to be a good player, and had managed to turn those I thought might support me away from me. Therefore he deserved to win, and I got Turkey the solo. Throwing a game has the same quality as stabbing in my book. Only a stab is to benefit the player, while throwing comes at their expense. Both decisions are legitimate if they achieve their goal, and I was not going to let this game end in a 6-way draw. There you have it. So, my response to that is that that's all BS, or at least those last sentences are. No, throwing a game is not the same as stabbing. It is like the worst thing you can do. Unless you know you cannot win, you should never throw a game. Stabbing is something you should do like breathing, whenever it is natural and appropriate to the situation. It is not a legitimate decision to throw the game to your friend, the person you liked, when you yourself were the one who was winning. And of course, Turkey managed to convince your allies away from you, you fool. No wonder that happened. Turkey was the one talking about a draw, you were just talking about your solo. Why are you expecting anything to be different? This is just so irritating and irrational. It's like it feels like somebody who doesn't really understand the game of diplomacy, or doesn't really like the way diplomacy works, talking about it. Diplomacy is not about someone gets lucky and gets a solo. Diplomacy is not about honoring all the deals you make. Diplomacy is about you play the best game you can. You get the best result possible. You solo, or if you can't solo, then you settle for some secondary option. You don't throw a solo. That's giving someone else their best possible result. Disgusting. Just terrible. So I was really annoyed. Russia was clearly going to survive and be in any draw that happened in this game. I think his decision was completely illegitimate, and we are all a little bit lesser as diplomacy players for hearing his reasoning. I hope you've enjoyed this diplomacy commentary. At this point, I would like to thank and credit my great Patreon patrons. You all are wonderful. You help me to continue this channel and making these videos with high spirits and an awareness that there are those who are super supporters of what I'm doing. I'd also like to take a moment to shout out something else that I'm doing creatively. As I've covered previously, my new story, Ruthless, Path of Conquest, is live, and Volume 1 almost completely available for reading on the website Royal Road. I was also uploading audio of the chapters to YouTube, but that's not happening anymore, for my own reasons. Following the link to Royal Road in the video description, reading some of Ruthless, Path of Conquest, and giving me 5 stars is almost as valuable, at this moment in time, as literally handing me money. Although, the story also has a Patreon of its own, in case you wanted to literally hand me money for it. If this story takes off well enough, my goal is to make my living by creating stuff. If it wasn't obvious, this would also be very good in terms of its effect on my likelihood of taking on new and interesting creative projects, some of which may be of interest to you. Till next time, Florida Man, out.